The following program contains shockingly brilliant insights. If you suffer from a lack of dark sunglasses, Randall may not be right for you. Check with your optometrist.
God bless America. God have mercy on our shores. Take our hand, united we stand. Lead us through the dark night of our soul.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. Randall Terry.
Hello, friend. We're going to spend a good deal of time on today's program looking at Syria and why, at all costs, we should not get involved. Stay with me. If you think we should, just stay with me. Give me a chance to persuade you. And the legislature in California, once again, not satisfied with the amount of people dying, is going to try and have more innocent blood on its hands. First, the only moment of levity that might happen in today's program, that fashion plate, the granny, look at her.
It's time now for Down Home with Granny Jihad.
Allah Takrapa! Boys and girls, Muhammad said, I have been ordered to fight against the people until they testify that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and that Muhammad is Allah's apostle. Oh, I am filled with joy.
Welcome to the program, friend. Let's talk a little bit about Syria and whether or not the United States should get more involved. What are some of the facts that we know for sure? That some of the freedom fighters fighting against the Assad regime are Muslim Sunnis. We know that the Assad regime are Muslim Shiites. We also know that Shiite Muslims and Sunni Muslims have been fighting against each other for nearly 1,400 years. Bloody, horrific conflicts have occurred over whether or not the leader of the Muslim world has to be a blood relative of Muhammad's, which is what the Shiites believe, or whether it can just be a valid successor who is a good, devout Muslim, but not related to Muhammad by blood. We also know that some of the freedom fighters are from a group called Al-Nusra. The United States State Department has labeled Al-Nusra as a terrorist organization. It is affiliated, without question, to Al-Qaeda. And of course, Al-Qaeda is who launched the 9/11 attacks against the United States. We know that if we supply arms to the Free Syrian Army, that elements of the Free Syrian Army are members of Al-Nusra. Hence we know that we will be giving weapons to the very people, Al-Qaeda and its affiliates, who launched the 9/11 attacks. I repeat, if Obama arms the Free Syrian Army, he will be arming those who were in agreement with and possibly complicit with the 9/11 attacks. We will be arming our enemies. There are people who say that for humanitarian reasons, we must get involved. And certainly, a love of humanitarian mercy towards our fellow man would at least cause great emotion in our hearts as we see images of children, boys, girls, women, the elderly, who are lying dead in the streets of Syria because of this tragic civil war. But the fact remains that if we arm the rebels, some of those arms will be in the hands of those that are committed to kill Americans. I ask you, do we really want to arm people that are committed to using arms to kill us? Can any person think that this is rational? Let me point something out to you. And some people are going to think this is a little bit heartless, but we should at least consider it. I'm not the world's only living heart donor. What we have going on in Syria right now are elements of Hezbollah and people that are attached to Shiite terrorism fighting against elements of Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, the Muslim Brotherhood, also known as Sunni terrorist elements. In other words, Sunni terrorists are fighting and killing Shiite terrorists. Shiite terrorists are fighting and killing Sunni terrorists. And they're not killing us? And people want us to get involved to stop that? I wish that Islamic terrorism did not exist in the world. I wish that Islamic Sharia law was obliterated from the face of the earth so that people could be free and Christianity could be preached in current Islamic countries. There's a lot of things I wish for, but we're not at that point right now. What we are at is a place where Shiite terrorists and Sunni terrorists are killing Jews. They're destabilizing the world. They've threatened to kill Americans if Americans get involved in this. So let's just stay out and let them kill each other, because we're not going to stop it, people. They've been doing it for 1,400 years. Every day in America, over 3,500 babies are torn apart by abortion. Shouldn't all babies, like this living, unborn child, have the right to life? Baby killing will only end when Americans see the truth of what abortion does to innocent children. You can help end this Holocaust by showing the truth of abortion in your area with a Face the Truth tour. Go to facethetruthamerica.com to set up a Face the Truth tour in your area. The babies and their mothers will be eternally grateful. My wife and I, for 5 years, have been grinding our own wheat and baking our own bread from scratch. Within 2 hours, you can have fresh wheat in your hand and then piping hot bread come out of the oven. The most nutritious and delicious bread you will ever have. And we do it for under $1 a loaf. Call Paula's Bread and find out about this grain mill and the mixer and how it can save you money and change your life. Welcome back to the program. As the drums of war continue, with Americans on both sides of the aisle crying out for the U.S. to get involved in Syria, there are people making arguments why it is an obligation for us to get into this civil war. CNN recently released an article written by Frida Gittes in which she gives 5 reasons why the U.S. should get involved now on the side of the rebels. I'm going to read to you those 5 reasons and explain to you one at a time why she is mistaken. All right? Number 1, she says we've got to get involved because other dictators are watching. President Obama drew a red line in the sand and said if you use chemical weapons, you're going to have to pay for it. There's going to be reprisals. Well, the lesson might be, don't make statements like that, President Obama. Don't get us involved in nations where we have no business being involved. So basically, because Obama made a stupid statement, we are now obligated to honor his stupid statement because other dictators are watching to see whether or not there are real repercussions for possibly using chemical gas against citizens. That's not a good reason to get involved. Covering up Obama's stupidity doesn't sound like a good reason to arm people who are knowingly, like al-Nusra and al-Qaeda members who are knowingly committed to our destruction. Number 2, chemical weapons will be used in future battlegrounds. If we don't do this, chemical weapons will be used in future battlegrounds. Well, they'll probably be used whether we get involved or not. After all, Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons against the Kurds after Iraq won. And what did the United States do then? Nothing. Nothing. So, to make the argument that if we punish Assad, the chemical weapons will never be used again is absurd. As long as mankind has had weapons, he has used them. Number 3, she says, the war is spreading. The choices are worsening. Well, maybe this is a straw man. Our choices are get involved or don't get involved. If we do get involved, then the choices might get worse. If we stay out, it's a simple choice. We are not getting involved in this fight. Shiite terrorists and Sunni terrorists are killing each other. We're doing a hands-off here, folks. All right? That's choice number 1. Choice number 2 could have 50 choices. If we send cruise missiles in and we don't take out Assad, then what? Then he's a victim. Then there's anti-American whiplash. What if they start attacking some of our embassies around the world? What if Hezbollah turns its attention away from Israel and starts fighting American installations? Do we see how many, and then what? Do we put boots on the ground? Are we going to go and nation build in Syria the way we did in Iraq? Are we going to go into a nation with American soldiers that borders Iran? The choice is worsening could be if we decide to send in a few missiles, that it opens up a spaghetti, a nightmare, a mishmash of horrific options. How are those for adjectives? Number 4, inaction will hand a victory to Assad, Iran, and Hezbollah. Well, if we intervene and al-Nusra and al-Qaeda warriors win, we could be handing a victory to al-Qaeda. We could be handing a victory to Muslim Brotherhood elements that would love to have Syria under their control. That might be worse than having Assad still be in power. And number 5, she said, a new generation of hatred will perpetuate this tragedy if we don't get involved. A new generation of hatred. That one was probably her weakest argument. Devout Muslims, whether they're Shiites or Sunnis, hate America, all right? There's been a new generation of hatred pretty much every generation. So whether we act or don't act, trust me, they're trading in the currency of hatred against us, and they're going to continue to do so for the rest of their lives. We should not get involved. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. Welcome back, friend. Have you ever heard of a proxy war? Well, the situation in Syria could quickly develop into a proxy war. And the history of proxy wars has been very bloody and not very successful. For example, by definition, a proxy war means when one or two sides are fighting in a war where they may or may not actually have boots on the ground. For example, in Afghanistan, when the Soviets occupied there, the US was sending military hardware as well as a few advisors to the Mujahideen, And so the US was fighting a proxy war against Russia through the Mujahideen. The Korean War was viewed at first as a proxy war. The Soviets and the Red Chinese were supporting the North. The Americans were supporting the South. In Vietnam, that was also in some ways a proxy war. Again, the Soviets and the Chinese were supporting the North, and the US was supporting the South. But in both Korea and in Vietnam, the US didn't just fight a proxy war, arming, giving money and aid to the rebels or to the fighters. We put boots on the ground. We found that our proxy help wasn't enough to keep the Soviets and the Chinese from their agenda of spreading communism by war, and so we put soldiers there. And tens of thousands of Americans died in Vietnam. Tens of thousands died in North Korea. And in the end, in Korea, 38th parallel, that's where it started in 1950, and in 1953, after literally millions of dead on both sides, it went right back to the same place. In Korea, we left in disgrace, and the country became communist. If we stick our nose in what is going on in Syria, Russia has committed publicly, repeatedly, and with extensive military hardware, that it is going to keep Assad in power. If we get in, I said if we get in, we're duplicating in some ways what happened in Korea, what happened in Vietnam, where we are going to find ourselves standing against a Russian agenda as we go to help heaven knows what agenda in Syria. Proxy wars have not served us well in many situations, and we end up getting dragged in. So if we start sending missiles to Syria, and then we see Hezbollah or elements of terrorists that are related to Syria begin to attack US facilities or embassies around the world, then what do we do? Do we send in more cruise missiles? Do we put in the 88th, or do we put in paratroopers? Do we put in Marines? Do we put boots on the ground like we did in Korea and in Vietnam? Do we end up entrenched in another proxy war gone bad? In my opinion, and it is a studied opinion, it is an act of insanity for us as a nation to get involved in the Syrian civil war. This thing is not going to have any happy end, folks, with or without us involved. But if we get involved, we guarantee that it will not have a happy end for us, and maybe for Israel, because Iran has announced that if we do get involved in Syria, that they are going to attack Israel. So if Obama and his advisors aren't smart enough to stay out of Syria for our sake, maybe they should stay out of Syria for Israel's sake. Because if we poke our finger in the eye of Assad, it could be Israel that pays with her blood. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. Every day in America, over 3,500 babies are torn apart by abortion. Shouldn't all babies, like this living, unborn child, have the right to life? Baby killing will only end when Americans see the truth of what abortion does to innocent children. You can help end this Holocaust by showing the truth of abortion in your area with a Face the Truth tour. Go to facethetruthamerica.com to set up a Face the Truth tour in your area. The babies and their mothers will be eternally grateful. Hi, friend, I'm Randall Terry. George Washington said, "Government is not reason, it is not eloquent, it is force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master." Welcome back to the program. There is some tragic news developing in California. It's very simple. The state legislature is on the verge of passing a law that would allow non-physicians to murder unborn babies by vacuum aspiration. Now, if there are any small children in the room, I suggest that you tell them to leave, because I'm going to explain what is going on and decry this. Most babies are killed by abortion in the first 3 months of pregnancy. They are killed primarily, not exclusively, but primarily by what is called vacuum aspiration or suction aspiration. The woman's cervix is dilated, and a plastic tube about the size of my pinky is inserted into her uterus. It has a sharp end on the piece of plastic, and the murderer will begin to jab the womb, or rather the amniotic sac, and will rupture the amniotic sac and then piecemeal rip the child apart. The suction is so strong that it will literally rip the baby apart limb from limb. Then the contents of the vacuum machine are placed on a table, and the physician will reassemble the child. He has to make sure that there's 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, and a torso, because if he leaves any of the baby's parts inside of the woman's uterus, the woman can go into septic shock and die, which has happened hundreds of times from safe, legal abortion. These bloodthirsty child killers in California are saying that because over half of the counties in California do not have a child killer, a physician who performs abortion, they do not have a child killer in over half of the counties of California, that women don't have adequate health care. And so the bill would permit, nurse practitioners, certified nurse midwives, and PAs, or physician's assistants, to kill babies by vacuum aspiration. All right? Members of the legislature are saying, well, this will endanger women, because these are not physicians, they're not doctors, and they're certainly not going to be as skilled at ripping her child out from her womb. The simple fact of the matter is, people, is that abortion is murder. This is murder. And these people want babies to be able to be murdered in every county in California. And so pro-abortion midwives and pro-abortion physician's assistants and pro-abortion nurse practitioners can now learn the grisly trade of how to suck a little boy or girl out of his or her mother's womb, and it can be legal. Now, it's interesting that this comes on the heels of the Gosnell trial. You will recall that Gosnell had people helping him kill babies who were not physicians. Some of the babies murdered were actually murdered from start to finish by a non-physician. This has happened in other abortion mills around the country. So, what does the California legislature do? Rather than tighten its regulations of abortion mills, it's going to loosen them and say, wink, wink, we know that non-physicians are killing babies already. Let's just make it legal so that no one faces prosecution like they did in the Gosnell trial. Because some of the people who were on trial for killing babies, and they were not licensed physicians licensed to do so. There is a God in heaven, and as Thomas Jefferson said, I tremble for my country when I remember that God is just and that his justice cannot sleep forever. Woe to the California legislature.